Welcome to the second episode of All for Lombardi.
The support on the first episode was truly awesome, and we appreciate the fact that you guys are listening to us talk about football for so long. Just a couple football fans just talking, and it's been something else. I just wanted to start the show. Appreciate that.
So we promised playoff predictions to start off this second show here, so that's where we're going.
Which we recorded last week, but of course some technical difficulties came up, and I guess we're going to start again. So we're just going to run through each division and say who we think is going to win it. And we're going to start with the NFC North, which is the Bears, Packers, Lions, and Vikings. I'll let Dustin say whoever he thinks is going to win, because if you listened to last week, you know I'm a fan of Chicago Bears. So
I think it's going to be the Detroit Lions. Now, Green Bay Packers, yeah, a lot of people are still hyping on them, but I think if the Lions have their year, it's this year. Genuinely believe that the Lions have a good shot, especially now with the highest paid quarterback in the NFL and Matthew Stafford.
Money. But anyways, I can't find it in my heart to pick against the Bears ever. I know last week I said I don't know if they're going to beat the Falcons, which we'll get into. Trust me. But I just can't find it in my heart to go against my Bears.
Well, you said you weren't expecting to win this week.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So then next is the NFC South, consisting of the defending NFC champion Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yep.
And we both got the Falcons on this one.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. You got the defending champions right there. And you have the Panthers, who are a good team, but they're not going to be there this year. The Saints and the
Saints defense is just terrible. Straight up.
And I'm forgetting the other team off the top of my head here.
Bucks.
I had it in my head.
Bucks.
Yes, the Buccaneers. They could be good this year. We'll see. We'll see how they do in their first game, but
the Bucks are the real threat to the Falcons in that division, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think the signing of Deshaun Jackson was great. It was great. He's a great pair with Mike Evans, because Mike Evans, he's the big 6'6" guy who's gonna catch TDs, and Deshaun Jackson the other side could burn someone out.
And we'll have cut the last part, so just so you know what happened, Nathan said Deshaun Watson. So now that's why he's making sure that he's saying Deshaun Jackson.
Well, next we got the NFC East, Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, and Redskins. And this is another pick we disagree on, actually.
Yeah, I have the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are just gonna. I think that could have a sophomore slump. I do think he's gonna have some form of that, but it won't be enough.
I like the Giants. I still like the Giants. I think that defense is very underrated. It's not the best in the league, but that front seven is it's something else. And then you got Landon Collins and Janoris Jenkins in the secondary. I think that's a very good team. And Eli Manning, whatever opinion you have about him, whatever opinion you have about him, he's going to at least give you a chance to win a game.
Yeah. Now we're going to go on into the NFC West. This is the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the 49ers, as well as the Rams. Los Angeles Rams. Sorry, now that we have those two LA teams, I get a little more confused easily on that.
And I got the Seahawks, because the Seahawks still most of the Super Bowl core is still around. Just that offensive line is terrible. Russell Wilson's on the run constantly, but that defense is still really, really good. And yeah,
I took the Cardinals on this one. You still have Carson Palmer and you still have Bruce Arians. Carson's getting on his age a little bit there, but those two can work together and get something. They've practically been snubbed just because they can't get in the last several years, but this year it'll be the year.
Well, actually, I got a question for you. So we actually made these predictions in the preseason. Now, after week 1, David Johnson has been put on the IR with a wrist injury.
Yes, he has. And
how do you feel looking onto your pick?
I'm a little conflicted about that pick now, but I'm still going to stick to it. I'm just going to say, you know what? The Cardinals, Carson Palmer, Bruce Arians, they're going to be able to get the job done finally. And then we have our NFC wild cards. I took the Buccaneers and the Seahawks. Of course, the biggest threat to the Falcons in that division, and the team I didn't pick for the NFC West that Nathan took, and I still think the Seahawks are capable.
And then I took the Cowboys and the Buccaneers, because as I think the Giants are going to win the division, but that doesn't mean I don't think the Cowboys are a really good team, and I like the Bucs. I just do.
And then the AFC is when it gets a little bit boring. AFC North, we both have the Steelers.
Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. Simple.
And then the AFC South, Titans. We have the Titans, and your competition there is going to be the Colts, the Jags, and the Texans. That may just end up being the bad division again this year, the one where it'll be the worst team getting into the playoffs, and that could sure well be the Titans.
When we talk about Deshaun Watson later, I have an interesting tidbit about that division, but continue.
NFC East, this is the Patriots division. I don't even have to say the other teams in that division.
AFC East, Tom Brady.
Yeah. And
Again.
the Jets, a lot of people have the Jets going 0-16 this year.
If there's any chance for another 0-16 team, it's this year at the Jets, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jets fans.
AFC West now, we have... I have the Chiefs. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm biased.
Of course. Well, this is going to be interesting. I have the Raiders. I like this Raiders team a lot. Shout out to my uncle. He loves the Raiders, and he asked for a shout out last week, so love you, uncle. But I like this team a lot. David Carr, in my opinion, is already a top 10 quarterback. I like David Carr a lot. And Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree is one heck of a wide receiver duo. And if Beast Mode if Marshawn Lynch can be 3/4 of Beast Mode, then that team's going to be near unstoppable on offense. And pair that with a pretty decent defense, I think they're going places.
I hate to do this again, but you said David Carr.
I did. Oh,
Derek.
Man, everything's coming back to the Texans? Excuse me, Derek Carr.
Anyway, now we have our AFC wildcards. I have the Raiders and the Ravens. Of course, the Raiders, like Nathan said, they're going to be a good team this year, in my opinion. Of course, I'm going to say the Chiefs are going to be over them in the division, but yeah. And then you have the Ravens, Joe Flacco, Jeremy Maclin, Rashard Perryman even. Their other wide receiver may end up doing pretty decent this year. I have him on a fantasy team, so.
Turn some heads. And then I have the Chiefs and the Ravens. So Chiefs fans, calm down. I still have you making the playoffs. I just like the Raiders more as a team.
So let's talk about the Falcons and the Bears.
I should have won that game. Bears should have won that game. Really should have. It's been a while since I've been that frustrated coming out of a Week 1 game. Because normally Week 1, no matter the result, you can take a breath and you can just enjoy football. But I know the Bears should have won that game. The defense was great. The defense held their own completely to one of the best offenses in league history with Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and all of them. They held them valiantly. Besides one blown coverage for a 80-yard touchdown, it was the defense they get a pass. They did their job. They did fine. Oh, offense! I'm already concerned. I can't believe how many 3-4 yard dip passes I saw on Sunday.
You guys were taking the Chiefs route there.
I know, right? That's just what I tell you. Everyone talks about the Chiefs throwing it 3 yards down the field. Man, don't I talk about Mike Glennon? But Mike Glennon, he was all right. He was serviceable. I'm not saying, start Trubisky yet, though. Maybe look out for that. And Tarek Cohen was incredible in his rookie performance. If you have the chance to, go look on YouTube at some Tarek Cohen highlights from Week 1, and you will realize why they called him the human joystick in college.
And I'll say this about the Bears game, something I noticed while I was watching. For like the first 3 quarters, no wide receiver got a pass at all. I mean, yes, I understand that you have big injuries to that wide receiver core right now, but you can't.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't sit them for 3 quarters.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no wide receivers. And then Kevin White injured again, which unfortunately is becoming a yearly thing at this point in his 3-year career. Injured reserve, he's out for the year. And then Jarrell Freeman, his years are over already. And that's just going to hurt the defense. So I feel like the Bears should have won that game.
Here's Glennon's longest pass in that game, 22 yards.
And I think he probably threw that past 10 yards. I think whoever had it ran for it. That was probably Tariq Cohen.
Probably.
Anyways.
Tariq Cohen had 12 receiving targets, 8 receptions.
Yep.
And if you were to combine Zach Miller, Kendall Wright, Deion Sims, you would only get 1 over the number of targets that Tariq Cohen got in that game.
relying too much on the little dip passes. And those are my thoughts on the Bears game.
Yeah, and other week 1 games, anything interesting that you saw? I'll say that Steelers-Browns game, that should not have gotten that close.
Real quick shout out to Le'Veon Bell for the whole 6 fantasy points that he gave me. It was rough. But yeah, I agree. Kaiser was alright, he was the Kaiser I expected. He threw he's the perfect definition of a gunner. He's just gonna throw a pass in there. And
Kaiser had a great game. I mean, I'll be honest.
He was alright.
Yeah, better than any other Cleveland quarterback probably has done in their first game of the season. There, we had the defensive slugfest, which was Seattle and Green Bay, 17-9. Green Bay won that game. I mean, that just
funny enough. On the cut part last week, that was our game of the week. And, well, it turned out not being exactly... It was still a good game, but it wasn't exactly the game of the week we expected going into it.
Yeah, I figured it would be Russell Wilson versus Aaron Rodgers shootout completely.
Yeah.
But instead, people like Ahmad Brooks of Green Bay and Morgan Burnett and Mike Daniels, Nick Perry on Packers side, and then, of course, Michael Bennett, Terrence Garvin, Shaquille Griffin over on the Seattle side, and Cliff Averill. They took the spotlight of that game. Now we're just going to go into things that revolve around the week 1 games, which is the quarterbacks.
It's a revolving door. It works out. If you didn't see the massacre known as the Baltimore Ravens versus the Cincinnati Bengals, it was a rough one, we'll just say. And bit of a hot take this week. Why not start AJ McCarron? I'm gonna straight up say it. Why not start AJ McCarron? If you don't know, Andy Dalton threw four interceptions in week 1, and they were not like batted pass interceptions. No, they were legitimate route cut interceptions. And clearly, Cincinnati holds value in McCarron because if you remember from the offseason, they were offered at least second-round picks, and they still didn't trade him. Because you would think if you have confidence in your franchise quarterback, you would deal him for a second-round pick. You would deal his backup for a second-round pick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually the funny moment where John Elway got frustrated because people were speculating that the Broncos were the ones who were wanting that. Terrell Suggs actually got 2 sacks and a forced fumble in that game on the Baltimore side. I figured that was of interest. And really quickly, remember, here's my problem with AJ McCarron. Remember that playoff game?
Yep, I sure do. He was okay. He wasn't terrible. I'm not saying he was great. I don't even know if I'd say he was good. But I think a culture change is really needed in Cincinnati because they haven't won a playoff game in so long. I hate to bring that up, but it's true. They haven't won a playoff game in so long, and they've been in all these conflicts with Vontaze Burfict and Adam Pac-Man Jones. I think a culture change is just needed. That's just what I think. And by the way, though you may ask, Andy Dalton's contract probably forbids that, right? The Bengals could actually cut him, and it would only cost him $2 million in the offseason. So
this year or next year?
Next year, excuse me. Next year. So they could cut him this offseason, and they don't have to pay him $2 million. So just something to have in the back of your mind.
Deshaun Watson.
I think Deshaun Watson is a misstep away from being the starting quarterback of the Texans.
You just heard the clip of Nathan last week saying that Deshaun Watson is one misstep
away from starting, and it looks like I was completely right. If you remember from the predictions, I said I had something to say about this division. Here's what I have to say. The Texans are in an interesting position right now because if you haven't been able to tell, Jacksonville and Tennessee are just getting better and better. Tennessee has gotten some great draft picks, some great production out of their draft picks, and Marcus Mariota has been great, like I expected him to be coming out of that draft a couple years ago. And Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray have formed a great 1-2 punch. And Jacksonville has made some really good free agency signings, including Calais Campbell, who got 4 sacks this week. But anyways, that's besides.
He was the top sack
leader already, and I wanted him on the Bears, but maybe for different reasons. Bit of an inside joke there.
Yeah, that's another topic for another day.
But they're getting better. The Texans they're not getting worse, but they're just staying the same. And I don't think that's enough to stay relevant anymore. So I was shocked when they said, "Oh, we're going to start Tom Savage." I'm like, that's not going to last. There's no way. Because really they're fighting to stay relevant right now. That's my opinion. And really the same goes with the Colts. The Colts aren't getting any better. They're just staying the same.
And Andrew Luck is scheduled to be out till October at this point. That's at least 4 more weeks of no Andrew Luck and potentially Scott Tolzien or even Jacoby Brissett starting for the Indianapolis Colts.
So the Rams and the Colts was a Week 1 matchup. And if you didn't see, the Rams put out a 46-9 win.
Those 40% of people on NFL.com were right.
Apparently, yeah. But Tolzien was awful. There's no other way to put it. Tolzien was truly awful. He threw 2 pick sixes in the 4th quarter, and Chuck Pagano said, "Nah, I'm done." Then took him out of the game, and so came in Jacoby Brissett. You may have mentioned me. You may remember me mentioning last week the Dorsett trade to the Patriots. Excuse me. And he was the other piece of it. So he came in late, and looks like they're going to probably stick with him at this point.
Yeah, right now they both are getting good parts out of that deal. That's for certain. And then injuries, Week 1. We had a couple of major injuries. Of course, the aforementioned David Johnson, who's been put on IR Boomerang. Was he on the Boomerang or is he on?
He's on the Boomerang.
Okay, so Boomerang essentially means he could be back by Week 8.
Yes, Week 8.
Yeah.
You spend 8 weeks on the IR and then you
can come back probably now, but yeah.
That's a killer. That's a killer for the Cardinals. I thought the Cardinals had a chance this year. I don't think so anymore. I really, really don't.
That's a killer if you have him in a fantasy league. So right now, I'd get him out of there as fast as possible.
Good luck to anyone who drafted David Johnson early in fantasy. My heart goes out to you.
Tariq Cohen would probably be a good fantasy target to replace.
I just picked him up in waivers. I'm all in. But really, that Cardinals offense is David Johnson, and more David Johnson. So I'm interested to see how that offense is going to work now.
So no Carson Palmer. You don't consider him part of the...
Yeah, Carson. Okay, David Johnson, Carson Palmer. There you go. A little bit of Larry Efter in there. There's the show.
And then we have Allen Robinson from Jacksonville Jaguars, that wide receiver. Kind of a big loss because now they can just go to Marquise Lee.
And Allen Hurns.
Yeah, that will be those two.
Allen Robinson tore his ACL last week.
I guess it's a good thing that when the Jaguars were dangling Marquise Lee as trade bait, that nobody picked Allen
Hurns.
Ah, darn it.
It's all right.
Oh well. Allen Hurns. Well, good thing they didn't do that to him either, because it'd probably be Marquise Lee and some other guy now.
I wanted Allen Hurns too, and now I know it's not a possibility.
And then now it's time to talk week 2. I almost said Week 1 again, and that's a big whoopsies by me. So, first game we're going to talk about Philadelphia Eagles at Kansas City Chiefs. This is at Arrowhead this weekend. This is, of course, Andy Reid's former team before coming to Kansas City. Doug Peterson, he's the former Kansas City offensive coordinator. He did that from 2013 to 2015. So, very interesting game coaching-wise for both of these teams. This will be Andy Reid's first time against Doug Peterson, not his first time against the Eagles since he has come over to Kansas City. He defeated the Eagles.
The master versus the protege.
Yes, very much so. And we'll see how that one goes. Of course, you're going to have the matchup quarterback-wise, Carson Wentz and Alex Smith.
Alex Smith was... You know what? We are nearing a week since that game, and I'm still shocked how good Alex Smith was last week.
Yeah, he ended up becoming the leader in number of passing yards from the week last week.
Mm-hmm.
And then over on the the running back side, sorry, I was chewing some gum earlier, so my voice is a bit dry here. LeGarrette Blount on the Philadelphia Eagles, and of course Kareem Hunt, who had another guy who had a great performance last week against the New England Patriots.
Then of course Alshon Jeffrey on the Eagles. I used to be the biggest Alshon guy there ever was, and then he left for no money just to get away from the Bears, and now I'm salty. I'll admit to him. We'll see. Alshon Jeffrey is the perfect, as a Bears fan, I know Alshon Jeffrey is the perfect definition of the disappearing act, what I call. Just one week he'll get you 150 receiving yards, and 1 week he'll give you 20.
We normally don't talk kickers here on this just because it's
kickers.
A little more obscure subject, but Jake Elliott on the Philadelphia Eagles, he's a rookie this year, and he was 2 for 2 on his PATs last week, and we're going to cut that. Jake Elliott, he's a rookie, and he'll be facing the more long-time kicker now for Kansas City, Cairo Santos, so that could be an interesting matchup, looking at that there. And now let's move into the Bears and the Buccaneers.
Not like a little kicker showcase. Your kickers don't get enough love. I'll straight up. Kickers do not get enough love. Anyways, so we get the Buccaneers' first game of the season. Looks like
their first game of the season after Irma.
Yeah, Hurricane Irma, and the Bucs this week now start the journey of 16 games in 16 weeks. That does not sound fun at all. Really, what I'm interested in as a Bears fan of this game, this is a test for the secondary. Absolutely, Mike Evans. Deshaun Jackson, that's a test for the secondary right there. Quentin Depps, who was a signing for the safety, the Bears' newest safety this year. We signed him in the offseason. Had an up and down game week 1, and this is the perfect chance for him to redeem himself. Maybe get one off Famous Jameis. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. Because who knows? Maybe the Falcons are still really, really good, and maybe we win this game. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just what I think. And dupe and stuff. I don't know.
And so now we're going to talk some of these other games. We have the Sunday Night Football this weekend. You'll have the Green Bay Packers at the Atlanta Falcons. This will be the first time that we'll see the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And I believe they're going to host a Super Bowl within the next couple of years. That's normally what happens.
I completely forgot that Atlanta got a new stadium.
Yeah.
I think they built it pretty quick, didn't they?
What?
How long has that thing been under construction?
I think it's been under construction 2-3 years now.
Yeah, it shows you my memory is not the greatest, and I just got reminded of that. Thank you.
Now here's another matchup that you would expect to be a shootout, an offensive shootout, but after last week's Packers game, I almost start to question that. Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan. That just seems like the quarterback shootout. And if I'm not mistaken, I probably am wrong about this, but that might have been one of the playoff games last year.
It was the NFC Championship game.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. You're right. I hope the Falcons win. I'll say it. Bears fan, just think about it. Bears fan, talking about a Packers game. Julio Jones. If I can just actually give the Packers constructive criticism. The corners. Packers are not a very good corner team. And if you have Julio Jones on your fantasy team, first of all, you should start Julio Jones every week. But if you do, look for a big game out of him, no matter if they win or lose. Yeah, he had 9. He had the 9 catches, 180 yards, along with 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns in that NFC Championship game. And then Austin Hooper last week. I don't want to talk about Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper was that 80-yard touchdown I was talking about earlier. Austin Hooper broke my heart. That sounds like a t-shirt. Austin Hooper broke my heart. Maybe that'll be the Offer Lombardi t-shirt. There you go. Put on the back of it. Austin Hooper broke my heart. The picture of that game. Then we move into this week's game of the week. I'll be honest, we were looking at this slate. There aren't very many good games. I'm not a fan of this week's games, really. I mean, we don't have any terrible games. We just don't have very many good games. We don't have enough games to really spotlight here. And this week, the Dallas Cowboys will be going at the Denver Broncos. We picked this as our game of the week because when we pick our game of the week, we blacklist Sunday Night Football because by default, 99% of the time, Sunday Night Football is already going to be the best matchup. So I like this matchup a lot, actually. The Broncos still have that elite defense, of course. And I'm The Broncos defense versus Dak and Zeke is the perfect test. You wanna show the Cowboys weren't a fluke last year? Have them put up some good points against the Broncos. Then people really then at that point everyone's gonna say the Cowboys are for real for once. We can end the debate on that. And then what do you think? Okay, so we both thought Jamal Charles would be non-existent for the Broncos this year. What do you think? He actually got some good carries on Monday Night Football.
He got some good carries, but I still think he's going to be non-existent. He's too old. He's injury prone. I love Jamal. Don't get me wrong, Chiefs fans who are listening to this. I love Jamal. He's a great guy. He's a great player. Well, he was a great player. We'll just say that.
That's brutal.
It's brutal, but in the last 3 years that he played for the Chiefs, he practically didn't really. Last 2 years he played for the Chiefs, he practically didn't play at all.
Oh, that is brutal. That is brutal honesty from a Chiefs fan about arguably the best player in the history of your franchise. Wow. I was not expecting that. Threw me off guard.
Len Dawson.
Okay. I said one of the best.
I think you did say one of the best. Yeah.
One of the best. Yeah. I just like this matchup a lot. I just think it's a good combination of the worlds combining between offense and defense, and we'll see who wins this week.
We'll see if our game of the week ends up being a defensive slugfest this time. Or
like last time, if you may remember from 2013, Peyton Manning when he rushed for a touchdown in a 51-48 Broncos win. I remember that game, actually.
That was a long time ago.
I know, it was 4 years ago. It doesn't feel like 4 years ago, but it was.
So, I'll be honest. The only other game that I really know of that I even thought remotely that there could be a chance of getting interesting was Bills-Panthers.
We'll see how Cam Newton does. Yeah. Cam Newton was all right in week 1. I'm not sure. We'll see if he's MVP dabbing Cam.
That'll be the question. And I think the Bills, I think they'll be ranked. They may be ranked second in the AFC West this year. I'll go ahead and just say that division prediction. I'll go ahead and go all the way down to number 2. Any other games that you're thinking of there, Nathan, that I'm not?
Well, tomorrow. We're recording this on Wednesday, and tomorrow, Deshaun Watson. This is a perfect game. Deshaun Watson gets to start versus the Bengals, who should be led by A.J. McCarron. But it's going to be Andy Dalton. The Bengals haven't scored a point yet, so we'll see what happens there, and we'll see how Deshaun Watson does in his first start. As a play, he was all right last week in relief of Tom Savage, but we'll see how he approaches his first start.
The worlds on that quarterback segment literally collide this week, this Thursday. On Thursday Night Football over on NFL Network. So we're going to try something new to wrap up the show here. 5 things we've learned this last week, or, as I'm going to go ahead and just add on to it, things that we are going to learn this week. So 5 things we have learned this week or are going this last week, week 1. Or 5, or just...
5 things we've learned, period.
Yeah, 5 things we learned here this last week, week 1, or things that we will learn week 2.
Well, if I may start here, the first thing to me, don't yell at Sean Payton. If you didn't see Adrian Peterson, who is now on the Saints, got a whole 6 carries. He had 2 at halftime, and he did not look happy going into the locker room at halftime. He was literally yelling at Sean Payton. He was in 9 offensive snaps, the lowest of his career.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that relationship goes.
I bet he was really frustrated about that.
I can't imagine.
One thing I actually learned today was I didn't know you could get the wrong Hall of Famer on the Hall of Fame nominee list.
Steve, so yesterday or today, the 2018 Hall of Fame nominations came out. 108 people were on the list, and one of them was Steve Smith. Now, if you're a football fan, the first name you're going to think of when you hear Steve Smith is going to be the one that played for the Panthers and the Ravens, which I guess is what the NFL committee thought of, even though he just retired this offseason. And, well, they put the wrong Steve Smith on there.
Didn't they put a journeyman from,
Yeah, journeyman at...
who really didn't do that much?
3,000 career yards. Something like that. In 6-7 years. So, not so great Hall of Fame committee.
I wonder if he stays on the Hall of Fame list now.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see about that later.
Yeah, we will.
Another thing I have is third thing, excuse me. Jordan Howard. Okay, so again, check down passes. And I love Tarek Cohen. He was great week 1, but I think Jordan Howard should still be the focus back. Jordan Howard, he's still the grinder that he showed his first season. I just prefer if he got more touches. So just throw a little Bears in there for you.
Fourth thing, AP, Adrian. Well, no, we already did that one. I apologize. Yeah, cut out. The fourth thing that I learned this week was how few rushing yards running backs got. I mean, it's surprising. You only had 5 guys that eclipsed 100, and number 10 on the list was Tariq Cohen, who had 66 yards for 5 attempts. So, I mean, this was just a weird week for rushing, unless you were the Kansas City Chiefs, the Minnesota Vikings, the Buffalo Bills, the Dallas Cowboys, or the Jacksonville Jaguars. You really didn't have much performance.
Again, shout out to Le'Veon Bell for those 6 fantasy points. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are a little bit frustrated about that one after this week.
No kidding. And the fifth and final thing, Akeem Hicks got paid for another Bears thing. Akeem Hicks got paid right before on Saturday, right before the season opener. 4 years, $48 million, which is actually a good deal for his talent, for the level of talent he possesses, in my opinion. And he came up with 2 sacks. So, pay it for any fan of any team. Pay your guys. That's simple. Pay your guys, and they'll produce for you right away. That's totally what happens every single time.
Except Matthew Stafford.
Threw
for a pick.
Pick 6, first drive of the year. So,
And Steven Tuitt, who got his extension with those Steelers and is now injured.
Yep. And
so kind of do that. Just don't jinx yourself, I suppose.
Exactly.
And don't get your guy on the cover of Madden.
Oh, good point. Madden curse? We'll see you next week. And that'll about do it for All for the Lombardi Week 2 edition. God bless football. God bless America.
And God bless you.
Go Bears.